Good day, class. You're welcome to our next topic, which is design thinking. And before I go ahead, I would just explain to us what design thinking is in summary, right? Before we just go ahead. Or before I even explain, who has an idea of what design thinking is? Anyone? Before I go ahead? It's just a sentence? Okay, okay. No problem. That's why I'm here. So design thinking actually is just a framework of how we come up with solutions in design. Design thinking basically in the shortest form is a framework that guides problem solving, creating solutions in design. And design thinking is not just used in design, it could be used in whatever industry, but it's just a framework that guides problem solving. So we're gonna go on to next page. So to understand design thinking, I brought up UI and I brought up UX, right? And I'm going to be explaining it carefully so that we understand. Yes, design thinking is a problem solving approach. Amazing, Victor. Right. So I'm going to explain to you carefully what UI and UX is. So like I said, this session is very important. So we have to make the best use of it. So listen very carefully to each word I say. Now, UI stands for user interface. UX stands for user experience. There are two things that they always call, they put it together, right? UI and UX. Now, what is UI? UI refers to the visual and interactive elements that a user interacts with while using a product. UI is everything you see on the screen. Look at your Google, this presentation, this Google Meet you're looking at. You can see my face, my card, my picture, the button, the mute button, the all of these buttons that you see are the UIs. The text is the UI. The colors are the UIs. The menu, whatever you see is the UI. The color schemes, the typography, and other design elements make up the interface. So now every little thing, the color plus the emoji plus the person's name, that is, for example, I'm looking at Emmy's card, I see his logo, then I see Emmy visuals. That makes up a UI element. That's a card, right? And then everything, all elements together makes up an interface, right? And UI should be intuitive, easy to navigate, and visually appealing. So if UI is everything we see, what is now UX? What is, because UI is everything we see? I'm looking at everything I see my app, and I go to my app, all I see is UI. What is now UX that people are talking about? Now UX, on the other hand, refers to the overall experience. Now experience, you don't see experience, but you feel experience, right? So it refers to the overall experience a user has while interacting with the product. It encompasses everything from the ease of the UI, how easy is that UI, to the usefulness of the product. Is that product useful? And does it meet the user's needs? UX design is focused on creating a positive and seamless user experience from the first time a user interacts with the product to the ongoing use and support. Now, to make it clearer, we said UI is the interface, what we see, the buttons, the types, the colors, the text. Now, UX is the experience. That is me using those elements that has been designed is the UX. Me clicking on that button, me doing this, me sending that emoji, me sharing my screen, me using those elements to do something on that product is the experience. What am I doing to actually use this product is the experience, because I'm going through I'm going through a journey to actually achieve my goal. If I want to cut this session now, I click on the red button. The red button is a UI element. Clicking on it is the experience. If I want to mute and unmute, or I want to share my screen, I'm going to interact with UI elements to create that experience. So that is why they always come together. Now, if you move on to the next slide, you see, sum it up. UI is the visual and interactive design of a product, while UX is the overall experience a user has while using the product. So I said something after that. I said good UI design enhances the user experience. So if your design looks good, it should send some emotions to the user's brain that, you know, this experience will likely be good. And a positive UX, that is, good UX requires excellent UI design. That is, every good UX must have good UI, but not every good UI must that has a good UX. Let me say that again. Every good user experience requires an excellent UI, but not every good UI requires an excellent UX. Why? Because UX houses the UI. UI is just the interface. UI is just, it can only influence how we perceive the experience. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, amazing. So it can only be
I can hear
perceived.
you.
Yeah, amazing. It can only be perceived that okay, this experience might be good, but it doesn't. UI is not the basis for great UX, right? So that's what it is. Moving on, what is design thinking? So we first explained UI carefully. We explained UX carefully, and then we now move on to design thinking. And why do we have to do this? Now, design thinking refers to the process of creating something new or improving upon something existing in order to make it more functional, effective, aesthetically pleasing, or useful. Very important. Design thinking, a lot of the products we use now follow this concept. It's either they are creating or they are improving, and a lot of time it's improving. It's more difficult to improve than to even create. Now, it involves range of activities such as researching, conceptualizing, prototyping, and testing to arrive at a solution that meets the needs and requirements of the intended users. Thinking, okay. So I made a mistake. Anyway, but thinking refers to the process of using one's mental faculties to consider, analyze, and interpret information and experience. It involves a range of cognitive activities, including perception, attention, memory, language, and all of that. Let's just move on to the next one. What is design thinking together? Design thinking is a human-centered approach to problem solving that combines the creative and analytical aspect of design with deep understanding of the needs and experiences of the people for whom you're designing. So this is just like more like a very broad definition, but design is a human-centered approach to solving problems, and that is it. That's how simple it can be. Design is a human-centered approach to solving problems. Some people say user-centered, some people say human-centered, but it is focused on people, the users, humans that are actually using the product, right? That we are creating that solution for, and that is design thinking, and that is what builds the basis of creating product as at this age in product design, in UI UX design, right? So we use a human-centered approach to solving the problems. So you might be thinking, how do we use a human-centered approach? Is we use the framework of design thinking, which is empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. Now, with these, if we do them properly, we have a human-centered approach to solving a problem. Now, not everybody uses this. Not everybody does the empathizing, defining. Not everybody. But this is just a guideline that helps you create a human-centered design, a user-centered design, right? Did they say it's compulsory to follow it? It's very good to follow it, but is it compulsory? No. But we have to know it to help us, while designing. Now, moving on. It is called design thinking because it draws heavily on the way that designers approach problems and develop solutions. But it can be used by anyone in any field to solve wide range of complex problems. So it could be used in business analysis, it could be used in marketing, it could be used in, you know, not just design. It could be used in a lot of industries, a lot of fields, right? It's not just design, but this helps us um, in design as well. Now, and you should also understand that design forms the basis of almost everything we use daily, right? So that's why it could be used in every or any field. Okay, so we have the first phase to be empathize. Now we have empathize, we move on to define, we move on to ideating, move on to prototype, move on to test. Now, what is empathize? In a simple sentence or in a simple, just in a few words, understand user's perspective and needs. Now, if you remember what we said about design thinking, it's human centered. Some will say user centered. It's fine. Human centered, user centered. Who are the users? They are still humans, right? The users are actually the main people using the product, right? But humans are just every nook and cranny people, right? So it's human centered. That is centered around people. So that's to tell you that the first phase is empathizing, which means understanding the user's perspective. If you do not understand the user's perspective, how do you make it a human-centered approach, a user-centered approach? How do you do that? So that is why this is the foundation of the design thinking framework. Now, if you remember in the last class, no, on Wednesday, I explained the main difference between empathy and sympathy. That designers should have an empathetic approach while designing, empathetic feelings, right? So to empathize with users, it's important to gather information about their experiences, needs, and challenges. This could involve conducting interviews, doing observations, or creating personas to represent different user types. Now, I'll just recall what I said, I think, during our design dinner session. I said something about empathy is when you understand someone and then you put yourself in their shoes. You put yourself in their shoes, you wear their heavy shoes, and then you try to experience what, or you try to understand what they're going through, right? You put yourself in their shoes. That's empathy. While sympathy is, yeah, you can understand what, or you might not even really need to understand. You just see something and then, oh, you are just like you're apologizing to the person or you're telling the person, oh, sorry, don't be annoyed. But you're not actually going through, or you're not actually thinking through what that person actually going through, right? So that's the difference between empathy and sympathy. And then here in design, we go deeper by saying experiences, needs, and challenges, and ways to empathize is by conducting interviews, doing observations, creating personas to represent different user types. And it's not just about conducting interviews, it's more than that. The main thing at empathy stage is research, 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 and research. That is the basis of the empathy phase. That's why I have it written here. Right? This is research, forms of research. You have conducting interviews, you have surveys. You could go on like that just to do research. It could be secondary research, it could be primary research, to create qualitative or quantitative data, whatever it is. But this is the phase of doing research when it comes to design. And this is the fundamental um, stage, right? This is what will feed the rest of whatever you're doing after. Now, empathize. We'll move on to the next one, which is define. Now, let's be connecting it together like dots. The same way I wrote it here is the way we should be connecting it together. Now, we've taken empathy. Register that in your mind. Now, move on to define, right? Use the information gathered in the empathy stage to identify the core problem that needs to be solved. Now, we're human beings. Sometimes we don't even know what we want, but we like to lament and complain. We like to give different, we address things differently. We like to give different kinds of excuses. We just want to enjoy life, right? So, as a designer, you want to filter what is useful from what is not useful. You want to filter from what is needed from as a business from what is not needed as a business. And that is where define comes in. Use the information gathered in the empathy stage to identify the core problem that needs to be solved. That's the reason for design. So defining the problem is a critical step in the design thinking process. It helps to ensure that you're addressing the right issue. See, you cannot solve every issue as a designer. Focus on these particular issues, then solve them. Ensure that you're addressing the right issue for the business. And sometimes, let's look at it from the real world perspective. A business cannot solve all the user's problem. For example, the user's problem is, I want it to be cheaper. And then the business cannot afford it being cheaper unless they will go bankrupt. So, is that a problem you should address? No. Why? Because it doesn't help the business. You can't let the product cheap. If the product is, for example, 2,000 naira subscription, and then you calculate it, it cannot be lower than that. Then what? You don't need to address that. That's a waste of time. I'm just giving an example, but it's more beyond that, right? So you cannot solve all problems. Users will complain, say all sort of things, but you as a designer, you have to define it. You have to refine whatever has been gotten from the first stage. After researching, after hearing from the users, you want to now filter it, right? Then to define the problem, you'll need to synthesize the information gathered during the input stage and identify the underlying issues that need to be addressed. And there are different ways of this of doing this during the define. We're going to go through some of these things so that we're much clearer on how to do to do it. There are different tools that that design experts have told us on how to define, right? How to empathize, how to do this, how to do that. So that's the define stage. Now moving on from there is, I think I missed something. Ideate or sugar. Ideation is not here. Anyway, since ideation is not here, I'll leave a screenshot. I'll leave a screenshot for that. I'm wondering, why is ideation not here? That's super strange. Could it be that I designed it but I didn't prototype it? Anyway, so ideation basically is you ideating on how now to now solve the problems. Now you've gotten these issues from define, right? What are the, let's go back here. You've gotten this issue, you've done the research, you've mentioned the main problems that need to be solved. You filter them and you have the main problem that needs to be solved. Now you're on the way here at the ideation stage. Now, ideation stage will tell you, how can we now solve this problem? Okay, these are the problems that need to be solved. These are the most important problems that our product needs to solve. How can we use our product to now solve these problems? That is where you start generating ideas. You start looking for different ways to approach these problems. How can I solve them? What's the way to approach them? How do we do? You start thinking, and there are a lot of workshops that products people do in design-centered companies on ideation, and a lot of it, majority of what people do nowadays is just wireframing. They create wireframes, different kinds of wireframes. They share with the team, and then they get feedback. Oh, how can we do this? We do it this way, do it that way, do it this way, do it that way. Now, I think one of the workshops I was explaining this, I gave an example of a woman that likes to grind pepper. So let us use that scenario, right? So a woman was looking for a business. Let's call her Iya Samuel, for example. She was looking for a business, right? And she's asking herself, what business can I actually do? Right? So she went to do research. Now, she went to the market where she wants to establish her business. She was looking for, what do people actually need that is not here? She sees Chukudili. Chukudili is, he used to import and export rice, beans and all of that. He's a, whatever, what do we call them? Whatever we call them, sha. He does rice and all these dry foods, rice, beans, gari, and the rest. And she sees that a lot of people buy rice from him. Now she goes to one of Jogodi's customers and says, "Ah, madam, when you won't buy this rice, you don't go buy pepper, you don't go buy tomato." And then the one says, "Ah, not true, because I could need to cook stew for this rice." So she's gathering information, she's empathizing with the users. That's what she's doing there. She's asking them questions, right? And then after doing this, what does Yasamuel do? She now becomes Iyalota. She used to grind pepper. She creates a shop beside Iyachukwudi's shop so that anybody that's buying rice, come and buy pepper. Or if you are buying beans, come and buy pepper. Whatever you are buying, come and buy tomato and pepper and shombo, whatever it is. Even if you are buying beans, you want to do more or akara, you need to buy those things so that you would have like everything from one place. So anyway, I've jumped my story. I've jumped it, right? So I shouldn't have gotten there at that point. But this is it. So after gathering those information from Chukudili, she goes on to defining whatever has been said from the users. Some users complain that, oh, okay, I know if you work too long. I would like place where I could just buy my things sharp sharp. So as I buy my rice, I go buy. Some people say, oh, I know they like do they buy pepper from this market, or something like that. So she got all um um different kinds of complaints or responses from Chukudeli's customers. What did she do? She defined them, she refined it and said, wow, how can I solve this problem? And she said, you know what? I need to build a shop. I need to put my shop beside Chukudili's what shop so that when people do this, they buy from me. That's one of the ideas she generated. And she said, this looks like a promising idea. Or what if I put a signboard there? I just put a signboard, buy a pepper from Yalota, and then you put the signboard there, and then you put a different address. Is that a good idea? She was thinking as well. She did a bit of it. No, it's not a good idea. Let me scrap it. Let me actually put my shop here. That's the best idea. After the ideation phase, what happens? She puts her shop there. Now, prototype phase is creating the shop, how the shop will look, putting the pepper, everything. That's the prototyping phase, right? Then testing is actually testing with the users. Okay, when someone comes to buy, do they actually buy from her? Let's watch it for the first 1 week. Let's see what it looks like. That's the testing phase. But I've jumped beyond work. So we are under the prototype phase. So let's move on to prototype. Right? Let's move on to prototype. So that we see prototype is create a prototype of the most promising solution. And that was what Samuel did. She became an Iyalota. Why? Because she has already created a shop there, right? Prototype involves creating a low fidelity or high fidelity version of the most promising solution. Give me a second, guys. There's someone at my door. All right, so sorry for that, guys. Sorry for that. Okay, so we're back. So involves creating a low fidelity or high fidelity version of the most promising solution in order to refine and test. Now remember that Iyalota came up with two particular ideas. She said, "Oh, let me put signboard there. I will take them to my shop. Let me just put my shop here. Which one was the better one?" She said, "Okay, you know what? Let me put my shop here." And then she tested. She could have said, "Let me put my signboard here since it's cheaper." And probably customers were not coming there. She now said, "Okay, let's scrap it. Let me actually put my shop here. Probably that will work." This could be a physical model, a digital mockup, or even a storyboard. Right? So this is a prototype phase. And then moving on to the test phase. Get feedback from users on the prototype and use that feedback to refine and improve the solution. Now, probably after Yolota had put a signboard there, she might have been like, people are not coming to my shop. Oh, this thing is not working. She's getting feedback. That's her own kind of feedback. I'm using Yolota so that we can see it outside of just creating apps and creating websites. Let us actually look at it from a real world perspective. That's why I'm using this example. So it could be that people were not coming to her shop, and she was baffled that, Mom, be like, say this thing no work. Oh. What am I going to do right now? She now says, okay, since this thing no work, I don't test time no work. Let me go back. Let me go to this prototype again. Let me go, or she could say, let me go back to this idea, this ideation phase again. Let me create a new idea. And she says, let me drop my shop there and let me test it again. People were now coming back, people were coming back and she was like, oh wow. So she actually, this customer buys rice and he actually tells her, hey, she need to go buy pepper. Buy pepper from this my woman now. They go and buy pepper. Stuff like that. So they are testing and they are getting feedback from users. So as they come here, probably as they get to Iya Lotta's shop, she now says, she like as I put my shop here, after you buy your rice, you go buy your pepper. And the man says, yes, so I no go work far again because even this rice, I know if they carry them, the rice heavy. So I'll just buy them like this. I'll just go back to my house. It don't finish like that. You get that kind of thing. So we are getting feedback from users and on the prototype and using that to refine and improve the design. So, for example, after doing some questions and testing, they now say that, oh, madam, this your shop no even get fan. Abi, I go sit down, no get fan. And again, I go blend this paper safe. You know, get blender. I'll go run, stuff like that. So they are getting feedback from a lot of customers. So what does a lot of now do? She now was she gets blender. Bam. Why? Because she got feedback from users. This is why design thinking is user centered and human centered, and it's the best approach to solving problems. So what does Yalota do? She gets a blender. So what happens? They buy the paper. They don't just buy it there, but they blend it. That's how she got feedback from the users to improve her business. So this could involve conducting user tests, surveys, or focus thinking as the empathize phase, define phase, ideation, prototype, and test. Now, if you look at it, design phase, you have interviews, shadowing, seek to understand, non-judgmental. This involves, shadowing means you looking at someone, you seeing someone's actions without you interrupting them. You just want to experience, see how they do things. That's shadowing, right? Seeking to understand, non-judgmental. Anyway, we'll still go through these things one by one, right? Picking up the main pain points and making the best decisions of, okay, what is the best, what are the notable problems that these people are facing. You can create personas here. Yeah, it's also defined stage, or you can also create personas in empathize phase. But yeah, it's majorly for defining your inputs or what you got from the empathy phase, right? So moving on, you have the ideation. This is where you now generate ideas. There's something we call crazy eights, is a way of generating ideas, different ways. Yes, and thinking. This here you can think out aloud. There are just different ways to do that, right? And then we'll jump on that. We'll also take assignments on that so that we can much more understand how these things work. Now, the prototype phase is where you can come with the mock-ups, storyboards. Yes, storyboards depending on what the project you're working on. Keep it simple and fail fast to iterate quickly. Fail fast to iterate quickly. Fail fast to iterate quickly. Now the test is understand impediments, what works, what line thinking, and iterative process. Now, iterative refers to a process that involves repeating a series of steps or an action multiple times, each time making the improvement or refinements based on feedback or results of the users. The goal of an iterative process is to continually refine and improve the solution. Now, we see it from here. Iterative means that, for example, I come from here to here. I come from the empathy phase to what? What stage is this? Anyone? What stage is this? Quickly, quickly. Define. Amazing. So I come from the empathy stage to the define stage, right? Then after the define stage, I move on to ideation. I come up with an idea. Bam. What happens? Prototype sparks a new idea. No, I now come here. I create that particular idea. I create a prototype of it, right? Then I just see that mistake. Wow. After I see it, I'm like, oh, the prototype sparks a new idea. I come back again to generate a new idea, and then I go back to prototype it again. So, okay, looks good. Now I want to test it. From testing, I see that this testing creates a new idea. I come back to ideation. So let's now bring in that scenario of Yalota. She had an idea. She put a stand there and a stand that's pointing to her shop or something. Her shop is not actually beside um, um, Chukudeli's shop, but it is, it just put a signboard showing you that, oh, her shop is at so street or whatsoever. And then she was saying that after testing it, she said that, this thing's not working. Let me try another idea. So she comes back here and then she creates the shop now, which is a prototype, and then she tests it. What happens when she tested it? She now got more feedback that led her to new ideas. Tests creates new ideas for projects. That was when people were complaining, oh, Yalota, we need something that we can be blending or something like that. Sha. What happens? She now gets a blending machine, which is a prototype, and she tests it. Users are happy. So iterative process means that I could repeat each of them one. I could go through a series of repetitions of each step. So from here now, from the test phase, I could even go back to the empathy state. Maybe I didn't solve the right problem. Maybe, maybe that maybe that Iyalota, instead of her to start selling pepper, she was selling oil instead. So, oh, people will use oil to cook their oil to do that, do this, do that. And then business was not moving. It was not the best decision. So she has to create another idea. She has to talk to users, for example. So it's an iterative process whereby from empathy phase, ideation, testing, you can go back. From testing, you can go all the way to define. From testing, you can go back to ideate. From testing, you go back all the way to empathy again. Then you move again. It's like that, like that. So that is what we call design thinking and iterative process. It is not linear. It's not that you go from here to here and that's the end. You can always go back to refine your ideas. And this is how we improve products. This is how we improve apps that you see. This is how WhatsApp has gotten to where it is today. This is how ChatGPT has gotten to where it is today. Who can remember the first interface of ChatGPT? It hasn't changed when it comes to UI a lot, but when it comes to UX, ChatGPT has been evolving over time. I remember around 2020, is it 2022? When did ChatGPT come up? Is it 2022 or 2023? Around the 2022, I think end of 2022, beginning of 2023, or thereabout, that it was open to the public. Their first interface is not what it is currently. The same thing with WhatsApp, the same thing with Instagram, the same thing with these big apps. Why? Because they keep on following this non-linear. They go back. Is it working? It's not working. They go back, and it happens like that. So I know that we might have some questions. So this would be the end of today's session. So just to do a little recap, that we have the design thinking, a human-centered approach to problem solving, and this involves empathizing with the user, understanding their problems, defining the most approachable and suitable problem, and then ideating, generating ideas for that problem that you have already defined, then creating mock-ups, high fidelity, low fidelity prototypes, whatever it is, then testing it, to ensure that this is the right solution to the problem that has been gotten. And then if it's not, remember it's an iterative process of going back to refine the idea. So I'm going to stop the presentation here so that we can take questions, and then this can be uploaded for people that were not able to join. All right. Thank you guys. Be the best. All the best. Peace. So let me